Well, hello again from the Granite State. My name is Gary, and this is the Restoring Main Street podcast. Thank you as always for joining me. It has been a couple of weeks. Everybody saw the post. I came down with COVID. Fortunately, though, I had a couple of months earlier had sent away out of state because at that particular time you couldn't secure any other treatments, but I sent away to 7cells.com and got actually a supply of Ivermectin. So as soon as I came down with COVID, started taking the 10-day protocol of a pill a day, and within a couple of days, my symptoms were disappearing rapidly. And then it took a few days after that to kind of get strength back and feeling back, I guess what you would call normal. And I made a post about that, letting people know what my status was, what was going on, why you didn't see a podcast back a couple of weeks ago. Excuse me. And fortunately for me, our very nice surprise, I got a lot of positive response from people following on Facebook on that post relating to the absence of a podcast, and a lot of well wishes and get well soons, and I really appreciate all of that. That's really nice to see, and extremely encouraging. Just let me know that there are people out there definitely listening and paying attention, and I really appreciate that. So, trying to get back at it this week. What are we going to talk about? Well, I try, like I said, to share information with you on a regular basis, things that I think that perhaps, depending on what news outlets or what sources you go to, that you may not have heard. You may not have gotten this information because a lot of times anything that's pushing back against the larger narrative out there kind of, it gets suppressed. So I try to share that information with you, and I also like to try and share information that actually is really encouraging, or some, good news related to the things that we talk about all the time or on a regular basis. Anything that, like I said, is being suppressed. It's nice to get some good news once in a while. And this week, locally, here in the Granite State, I've got some good news to share. And although, like I said, it's confined to New Hampshire, I'd like to think that this might be an inspiration for other states to move in the same direction. So that's kind of what I'm going to share this week, some positive information, and try to get you to feel a little bit more optimistic than maybe you have over this last year. Give you something to look forward to and be encouraged here in 2022. So I say we get going and start the program. And there we go. Stuck with my ugly mug. So what am I talking about as far as being encouraging? There's a couple different fronts that most of us are still struggling with, one of which being the COVID pandemic and the lingering surge and what's going on with Omicron and those things, which, like I said, I can speak firsthand now that I've had it and recovered. What is the Granite State doing in light of that might give you some hope? Well, there's not a whole lot of mask mandates going on in the state. There's still suggested mask wearing in certain places, and still going by CDC protocols as far as when you become infected, how many days you should quarantine, and that sort of thing. But my encouragement at this point comes from the New Hampshire legislature in Concord. And there's a couple of bills that I'm going to talk about tonight and just share with you. And, this isn't for the sake of being political. Honestly, this is for the sake of saying, you know what? There are people in Concord that are standing up and fighting for your rights. that's what this is about. That's what I want to share tonight. And I want to start off with House Bill 1022. And I grabbed this particular article from the Granite Gronk. For those of you that are not familiar with the Granite Gronk, you know what? It's a website actually you should go and check out because it covers a lot of what's going on in the state. Steve McDonald and his crew there have been doing this for quite some time now, and they cover anything and everything that is happening in the Granite State. If it's important, if it has relevance, they are going to produce a story about that. So what we have here, what I'm sharing here, as you can see, is basically, let me get this so I can read, I apologize, a New Hampshire bill which allows dispensing ivermectin to persons in this state without a prior prescription. You know, that's a big deal. Like I said, I had to go out of state in order to get my ivermectin, and it made a huge difference as far as how quickly I recovered. You're hearing around the country the same stories. So, you know, they can try to downplay this therapeutic, this drug, this Nobel Prize winning drug, but you know their efforts are waning. They're, you know, they're dwindling and getting worse. And you know, when you get when you say high-profile individuals, never mind myself and my good story, but you know, when you got people like Aaron Rodgers, and yeah, now I'm gonna. Pull Joe Rogan, excuse me, the other person I was thinking of, a couple of high-profile people that have gone through these protocols, used ivermectin, and have basically the same commentary that I did as far as its usefulness, how quickly it helped them recover. You know, you can't ignore this anymore. So it was, excuse me, as usual, a little dry out here, running the wood stove. It was encouraging to see that, you know, our legislators in Concord are taking steps in the right direction to help make some of these therapeutics that have been difficult to get accessible. So like I said, this is House Bill 1022. Excuse me. Goodness. All right. Sorry about that. Okay. No, I'm not still sick. It's just dry out here. Please forgive me for having to hack in the middle of that. Anyway, let's try to get back to what's going on with this here, what I'm trying to share with you. House Bill 1022. So basically what it does, it allows pharmacists to dispense ivermectin over the counter without a previous prescription. So let me see if I can just, you know, read a quick part of this this story and share this with you. Excuse me. This was written back on January 17th. So it's several days old, but still worth reading. In a hearing tomorrow afternoon, the New Hampshire House Committee on Health and Human Services and Elderly Affairs will be hearing testimony on Bill HB 1022. The bill will allow pharmacists to dispense ivermectin to persons in this state without a prescription. So I'm not sure exactly where the bill sits right now. Like I said, it was supposed to be in discussion. I checked a couple of websites that you would look into to try to find out where the bill actually sits at the moment. As far as I know, it hasn't been thrown out. It's still in discussion, so that's a positive. I will share with you a couple of the websites that I was able to find so that you can check on some of these bills and you know, see where they're, you know, what their status is at the moment. But let me just read the first section here of this bill. This is Section 1. In this section, standing order means a written and signed protocol authored by one or more physicians licensed under RSA 329.12 or one or more advanced practice registered nurses licensed under RSA 326-B18, Such agreement shall specify a protocol allowing the pharmacist licensed under RSA 318.18 to dispense ivermectin under the delegated prescription authority of the physician of APRN. Specifically, a mechanism to document screening performed and the prescription in the patient's medical record, and including a plan for evaluating and treating adverse events. Let's see, section 2 on here says licensed pharmacists following standard orders may dispense ivermectin to persons in the state without a prior prescription. So, honestly, that gives me reason to be optimistic. You know, it's nice to see, like I said, that the New Hampshire legislature is stepping up and allowing access to something that is well known to be a helpful therapeutic. There are plenty of other states that allow the purchase of ivermectin. It's not an issue, and it has made a huge difference as far as people's recovery. The sad part about this is for all the pushback that ivermectin got and hydroxychloroquine, either one of those two particular therapeutics, you know, you can speculate all you want as to why there was pushback, but honestly, it's pretty straightforward. If those two therapeutics were allowed to stand, then the jab that's going on right now would not have been allowed to come to market, you know, even in an emergency status, because there was already a treatment available. So you can try and hide that fact if you want, but that's basically the truth of it. And it's nice to see, like I said, the state of New Hampshire making an effort to move forward to allow something that's known to work. Like I said, I used it. It worked. To be available. So keep an eye out on HB 1022, and like I said, that just gives me a whole lot of encouragement that you know, we're finally coming around and making some progress, and not being bogged down in the politics of all of this, and actually trying to treat and help people. Like I said, the sad part about this, when I think of what they did to ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, those particular methods of therapeutics, I'd be upset if I sat here and thought too long about how many lives perhaps those two therapies could have saved if they hadn't been suppressed for all the wrong reasons. But anyway, you know, let's try and move on from that, I guess. And so that's some good news. And also, there's another piece of legislation that is in the New Hampshire House, HB 1469-FN. Now, what is that? Well, in previous podcasts, we have discussed quite extensively, actually. Back last year, the beginning of the year, I did a couple different podcasts about this particular subject, and that was that of the Great Reset. Now, for just a quick, you know, brief reminder for those of you, I hope you're keeping up on this. I'm hoping you're paying attention to this. We've talked about the World Economic Forum and what they're trying to do globally. They're basically trying to get countries and companies to fall in line and ditch the free market system to a more fascistic, globalist type of financial and governing system. If you understand a little bit of what China is about and how China operates as far as businesses and how they basically treat their people, the Great Reset in a lot of ways is pushing in that type of direction. China is the model, basically taking away from your freedoms, away from small business, away from your freedom to choose, and they're going to take full control of industry and your life, all through monitoring, all through basically public-private partnerships, which is big business getting in bed with government, and like I said, taking away pretty much your choices. It's the global elites, along with financial institutions, banking, insurance, investment companies, like I said, along with large corporations, getting in bed with government and regulating all aspects of your life, from health to business to, just all of it. So I talk about the Great Reset. What is it that New Hampshire is doing, and what is HB 1469-FN? Well, the way the World Economic Forum and the Great Reset, how they're trying to go about implementing this, is basically starting out through the financial markets, through banking. And in a couple of previous podcasts, I had talked about the implementation of ESG scores, environmental, social justice, and governance, and them basically handing out scores to both companies and individuals based on those three aspects of your life. So you would probably surmise, well, if government is getting in bed with big business, if they're trying to make this a global effort and actually eliminate the actual free market, how does anybody fight back against something like that? Well, like I said in a previous podcast, it has a lot to do with going local. Big banks are the ones that are going to try to push this, giving you an ESG score. So how do you get away from that? How do you push back against that? Well, you go local. You go to a smaller bank. You do some background checking to see if they have anything to do with or talking about on their website or any of their literature. Come right out and ask them. Are they going to start implementing ESG scores? Have they bought into the Great Reset? Well, one way, like I said, of pushing back is through local shifting from working with a big bank to small local banks, but also through legislation. So what this particular bill, and a representative from Southampton, Representative Bernardi, along with several others, have sponsored a bill. And what this bill suggests, or what they're trying to get signed into law, is something that prohibits banks or businesses from using social credit scores in order to coerce you into doing what it is, or pushing you in the direction they want you to go. Let me see if I can pull this up. I've got a couple of web pages, so I can go ahead and kind of read a little bit of this to you. Excuse me again. So, what this bill basically suggests, I'm going to try and read down through some of the language. And it basically holds banks and institutions in this state, and prohibits them from basically implementing an ESG score, something that looks to supplant your credit score. Let's see. Let me read just a little bit of this, make sure I got the right page up here for you to take a look at as well. Let's try that. That gives you just a section to look at while I'm reading down through just a little bit of this. So what this bill in the New Hampshire House suggests, declaration of purpose, the General Court hereby finds and declares that practice of discrimination against any New Hampshire inhabitant, individual, association, and company through the use of their social credit or environmental, social justice, and governmental score in a matter of state concern that discriminates based on such scores not only threatens the rights and proper privileges of New Hampshire inhabitants, but menaces the institution and foundations of 3 democratic states and threatens the peace, order, health, safety, and general welfare of the state and its inhabitants. Subparagraph 2. Let me take another sip here. Okay. To be more specific, okay, all banks and other financial institutions doing business in the state of New Hampshire, either directly or through the use of an outside contractor, shall not discriminate against, nor advocate for or cause adverse treatment of any citizen or business in their business practices based on subjective or arbitrary standards such as social media posts, participation or membership in clubs, excuse me, associations or unions, etc. Goodness, excuse me. Political affiliation, employer or other social credit, environmental, social, and governance, or similar values-based impact criteria. So, wow, really dry out here tonight. I apologize for all the coughing and hacking. I hope you can kind of get through that. So basically what this bill is saying is it's putting a roadblock up for ESG scores. And if that isn't intended to throw a monkey wrench into the Great Reset, I don't know what is. So I was really encouraged this week between those 2 bills, finding out about them. And like I said, I'll post all this information underneath in comments after I'm done recording this, so you can check on those things. You can monitor them, see how they're progressing up in Concord, and keep track of all of this. But all of that, those two items, pushing back against COVID and allowing you access to other therapeutics that I know work, and then producing a bill that is basically thumbing in the eye the idea of the Great Reset in this state and trying to set up some barriers and some protections. It just, if you want a euphoric feeling, when I heard about this, that was a euphoric feeling, and I hope you feel the same way. A lot of the reason I bring up any of these topics is, as far as restoring Main Street or its impact on citizens in this state or any small town across this whole country. That's why I discuss these things, because I see them as adverse impacts on you being allowed to live your life. When you're talking about the Great Reset, like I said, they want full control of every aspect of your life. Remember, Klaus Schwab, not Charles Schwab, mistake I made last time. Klaus Schwab says that by 2030, you'll own nothing, but you'll like it. No. I don't see that as something that Americans will sign on to willingly. You might have a handful, and it's a very small handful, but most of us like and enjoy our freedoms and want to hold on to them. So like I said, I was very encouraged by both of these bills, and I felt, let me share this with you. Let me give you something that's positive for a change, instead of negative. And the only reason I share the negative, it's information, it's facts, and I just want you to know about it. But this should make you smile on the inside and out. As far as the ESG score bill, we're one of 3 states that have started action in this direction. The other state being Texas, and I'm trying to remember what the other state. I almost want to say it's Florida, but I'm not sure. I know Texas has got a bill, and the state of New Hampshire is pushing back. So all of that, like I said, is to me is very encouraging, and I wanted to share that with you, and I have every intention of posting some links to the House, some of the bills, like I said, websites where you can track these things and stay up on them, see how they're making their way through the House and Senate up there in Concord, and hopefully make it to the governor's desk so that these things can get signed into law and we can make some really positive progress. And again, before I forget, let me remind you that, like I said, I found that first article about the Ivermectin at the website, the Granite Gronk. I will post a link for you to follow that as well. And there's another good site in the state of New Hampshire. If you've never been to nhjournal.com, they cover everything that's going on in the state. If there's anything of any significance, they cover it as well. So I would encourage you to go check out the Granite Gronk if you have not yet, and NH Journal as well, if you want to keep up on what's going on in the state and read some very good, very well-written articles. So wanted to share those couple of things with you. Like I said, give you a reason to smile. I will also, as far as the Great Reset and maybe even a deeper explanation, Glenn Beck recently did a full hour podcast or special about the Great Reset, trying to condense it. He had done something much more lengthy back a couple of months ago. This is a condensed version. I'm going to post the links to that along with an interview that he did with Kim Iverson, discussing this very topic, the Great Reset and ESG scores, and what the World Economic Forum is attempting to do as far as influencing our lives and intruding on our freedoms. So I will share that with you. Like I said, I'll put all that in the comments so you can follow those links and read up on some of this yourself. Like I tell you all the time, you don't have to take my word for this. Check this stuff out yourself. The only way you understand the Great Reset is to read more about it, watch a few specials. You need to understand this because this is an effort that's not going to stop, and the only way that you can have an attempt to protect yourself and your freedoms and not let this just impact you and take over your life is knowledge. So please read up on this stuff. Like I said, don't take my word for it, but I would appreciate it. If you would do your own research, you will appreciate it in the end, so you have a better understanding of all of this. I think next time we're going to pop a cough drop or something because, wow, battling the dry throat tonight. Okay. Want to share a couple other things with you as well. Excuse me. One of our biggest proponents, biggest supporters is my friend Gene Valley. And he has on Facebook, as you can see here, a webpage called Coffee News Rochester. And anything that's happening in the wonderful city of Rochester, you can find updates and information on Gene's page, Coffee News Rochester. He normally posts a link, or I send him a link from this podcast, and he posts it on his site as well. And I bring up Gene especially this week because back a couple of days ago, come to find out my friend is been battling COVID for a good 2 weeks. I had no idea until he sent me an email letting me know. So for all of Gene's support and what he does for this program, to share the info, share the knowledge, I would ask that you would say a prayer and think of my friend Gene Valley this week, and please send some love and support his way. I would much appreciate that, and I'm sure Gene would as well. And as always, I like to share also remind you of my friends at metalheadsrock.com. Like I said, if you're into headbanging heavy metal music, if that's what you truly enjoy, it would behoove you to at least go to the website, or if you're in the area, travel to Rochester, over to the Lilac Mall, and take a walk around the Metalhead shop there, and you can find all kinds of t-shirts, sweatshirts, mugs. Like I said, both the metal wall hangings that I have behind me were made by my friends at metalheadsrock.com. So if you want a good dose of wearing the apparel and representing, go to their website or go to the store here in Rochester and tell them that Gary from Restoring Main Street sent you. They'd much appreciate that, and I would appreciate that as well. So now, in closing, I covered a lot of ground this week, so I appreciate you hanging in there. One other thing I'd like to do is, just give you a quick update. A couple of podcasts ago, one of the things that I had reached out, basically wrote an article for the Restoring Main Street page on Facebook, talking about how many followers I had. Over 700 followers, but it seemed whenever I sent out a post, excuse me, that I got very minimal response. And in a lot of ways, I felt that it was Facebook's way of throttling me, because I don't follow the masses. I have my own opinion, and I speak my mind. So not something that, Facebook usually likes. But, the good news, after I like I said, wrote a rather lengthy post talking about this and posting it on Facebook, I got quite the response. And I want to thank all of you. As you can see here, I got a good 443 people reached, 248 actual engagements. There was 30 different comments. And as far as the last 28 days, I'm looking on my Restoring Main Street page right now. In the last 28 days, with the different posts, I've had probably 4 or 5 different posts over that period of time, along with a couple of podcasts. I've managed to reach 4,227 people. I've had 1,699 engagements and 11 new likes. So I would like to thank all of you for reaching out, letting me know that you're hearing what I'm putting out there. You appreciate it, sharing it with friends. It was just it was overwhelming. I'm still not seeing, when I post something, if I've got 777 people following me, I'm still not seeing 777 people reached. So, some of that throttling is still going on. But you know what? The good word, or the good news is, or the encouragement that I get from all of this over the last couple of weeks, that the people are hearing me. People are reaching out. People are showing that there's an interest there, and they understand what it is that I'm talking about and trying to share. So I'm just very grateful. I appreciate that. I appreciate all of your patronage and all of your well wishes from when I was down and out with COVID for a little bit. But thank you. Thank you so very much. And you can find Restoring Main Street. I will continue to post on YouTube, Rumble, Gab TV, and BitChute as far as the video version. As far as just the audio, you can find Restoring Main Street on Anchor FM, Breaker, Google Podcasts, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, and Spotify. So if you would think about sharing, hitting the notifications button, writing a review, give us a 5-star review on any of this. Whatever platform you're on, whatever way you can show some positive feedback, comment. One of the ways podcasts like this start to gain more traction is when you get commentary about what it is that you're sharing. So if you would do those things, that would be greatly appreciated by me, and it would help boost the podcast as well. All I'm attempting to do, like I said, is share information that I think perhaps that you don't always see or you don't always get. Trying to give you things that you can be encouraged by, things that you can try and do that are positive, that move you in a positive direction. And that's my goal. That's my goal, and any and all of your support will just, like I said, help push the podcast a little bit higher, get the algorithms to recognize it, and we can keep sharing the message. So that's, excuse me, that's the goal, that's the plan, and to this point, I want to thank you for all your support. And at the beginning of the podcast, if you notice that I'm still running the 50-second quick ad about my poetry book, the North Country Chronicles, Poetry and Prose from the Grand Estate. You can find that on Amazon.com and Barnes & Noble. If you would consider supporting me in that way, that would be great. So that's it for tonight. I think I covered a decent amount of ground, and hopefully in a short period of time, and didn't bore you too much. But again, I just want to thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for taking some time. Thank you for reaching out, like I said, over the last couple of weeks, with all that I've tried to do on Facebook to trying to up the profile of Restoring Main Street and get the word out. And it's because of all of you that'll change, that'll get better. And I am beyond grateful. So thank you. And as I always do, I like to leave you with this particular thought, and that's God, freedom, and family. Because honestly, if we lose the first two, our families are definitely doomed. So thank you once again. Please tune in next time, and until then, God bless.